Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro, accused of authoritarianism, has asked the United States President Donald Trump not to lead his nation into an Afghanistan-style war with his country. This is as the American military build up in his region intensifies. Trump's Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has pledged to purge the Americans of narco-terrorists. President Donald Trump has been briefed on options for military operations inside Venezuela. He is yet to take a decision on how to proceed with ousting the President Nicolas Maduro. He reportedly weighing the risk and benefit of launching a scaled-up campaign over concerns about how effective the move will be. The wide range of options presented by President Trump on a U.S. military operation in Venezuela include airstrikes on military or government facilities, drug trafficking routes, or a more direct attempt to take out President Maduro. Officials told lawmakers last week that the U.S. government does not have a legal justification that will support attacks against any land target. And global affairs analyst Gbenga Onifade joins me from the United Kingdom to discuss this controversial interest of the United States in Venezuela. It's good to have you join us at this time. Experts previously argued that despite this escalated rhetoric that we've seen in the past few weeks, the United States was unlikely to strike. With the recent deployment of the largest U.S. warship that we've seen in near Venezuelan waters, do you think that calculation has now changed? Is a military strike becoming more likely?
Hi, good afternoon. Sure, you could say it's quite imminent that U.S. will strike, but I think what we need to understand what exactly is President Trump trying to do. He's a very volatile president, number one. But at the same time, I think we could all see from antecedents as well, he is a president that does not like war. But yes, one thing I always say, which I noticed about President Trump also, is it's a president, he likes deal. He's a deal maker. So, but of course, he wants things, he's put a bounty on President Maduro. Does that really mean that's what he wants to do? I'm not sure yet, number one. I mean, he wants something, yes. Does that mean he wants war? But we've got to understand also, if you could see the stories changing, with the United Kingdom saying, just as of yesterday, they would stop sharing information because, of course, nobody's interested in global war, which think this could be protracted into. But I think they are moving the goalposts. And of course, with things changing a bit more, things getting a lot more volatile, you would expect that he wants to deal. And, there are times where you just have to push some of these things just to be able to get your deal. I think President Trump has been talking about two things which he mentioned: the influx of, the narco war by sea, and I think we've actually seen over the past few weeks that they have been targeting some of these narco traffickers, by sea, and of course some of them by land, and that's what President Trump has said he is trying to do, trying to stem the flow, and if at all, totally stop it, really. Which these guys are getting a lot more powerful. So while it kind of looks like, it looks like, U.S. is, looking out for war. And of course, we've got CIA, which has been authorized to, perform covert operations and gather more intelligence in Venezuela. But I think we've got to actually look at it a bit more. I don't think that's exactly what will happen, not in the time being anyway.
I mean, when we look at past relations from President Trump and other nations, you can see that it's quite unpredictable. We can't really see what he may be planning. But if the U.S. does carry out military strikes on Venezuela, what's the long-term objective of this? Venezuela's military, they're likely to be neutralized when we look at military strength of the United States. But what will you think will come after? Is the president likely to step down? I mean, Maduro, and who will replace him in Venezuela at this time?
Well, great question. The Nobel Prize winner who got in terms of, or instead of President Trump himself, Maria Corina Machado, she said, she welcomes regime change at the moment because, and we know she is the key opposition with Maduro, who's been governing since 2013. So if the U.S. perform, this unlikely situation of war, which we think in our instigation, I think it's number one, it's probably just for expansion of US targets. What do they actually want? I mean, just similar rhetoric, which they said with Nigeria. Of course, that is a little bit or a lot more different, but I think number one is to expand the US targets. A strike would also be a major escalation, but I think we also need to understand that Venezuela are positioning their guys. Yes, we know they are not of any might in terms of strength of the United States, but they are positioning. So, but also we've got to understand there will be a congressional involvement as well from which could lead to legislative challenges. So things are not just going to go that way. But yes, there will be, unfortunately, there will be a regime change. You've got to understand there's been a bounty on Maduro's head. But also, I think a key things, just to answer your question in terms of what options they've got is, there will be probably continuation of current operations, and they're going to heighten this pressure just to see if Maduro will break. And eventually, if it doesn't break, then of course the unthinkable, which I'm thinking will probably happen. That's number one. Number two, there will be, I think, probably targeted strikes. Again, decapitation strikes as well. Direct attack on special operation raids, which aimed at Maduro without having to get boots on ground, and top lieutenants, and of course covert operations in just so that Maduro could just, leave the country.
I'm wondering what's really going through Maduro's head at this time. About 15,000 U.S. soldiers around Venezuelan borders, the largest military shape. The president is facing massive U.S. military pressure, which, suggested that, some reports suggested that he offered concessions to President Trump, including cutting ties with Russia and granting American companies access to oil and gold in exchange for remaining in power. Is it likely that Maduro will actually sell out part of the country to secure his position?
Power is a big deal. Power is a big deal. He's definitely offered, Trump some carrots. Say, look, let's meet at the table. Let's meet in the middle, so you can, let's get all of this off. And I think the key things is President Trump wants a deal. I really do not know what deal he wants. Yes, carrot and stick approach is number one, which I think probably will work. But of course, one of the key things is, and I do actually have quite a few, one or two, Venezuelans as friends, and when you actually speak to them as what are the key things that's on the table right now, or the key concerns, they're not actually talking about it, which means they're not as stressed. So I think things are still very much high level. And I think everyone is still a lot more concerned about the next meal, the economy and state of things. That's what they want. But I think, like you said, this is still very much a top level, carrots and stick approach. Maduro's actually offered Trump. And like you said as well, I think collaboration and partnership is a big deal to America. They will use whatever means just to be able to get you back to the table. Yes, Venezuela's got what the whole world wants in terms of resources, etc. Yes, America's got it as well, but they would rather come to the table, be our key trading partners, let's talk, instead of, the whole dribbling approach. We can talk, we can agree a deal, and all these things can be off. Yes, sometimes it might have to cost mobilization, which is what America is doing. It costs a lot of money. They might have to do that just to be able to get someone to come to the table. And it's something you have to pay up front just for you to be able to get a good deal.
I mean, it's not just President Trump. Past administrations in the United States, they have long maintained strategic interest in the Western Hemisphere. Now with President Trump again emphasizing that this region is important to U.S. national security, are we likely to interpret this as a renewed long-term pivot towards Latin America once again?
Oh, yeah. If you, the past few couple of weeks ago, President Trump, I think promised Argentina a certain amount of money in the billions. That's number one, just to be able to help them revive the economy. You could tell he has his eyes on these key areas. And, unfortunately or fortunately, Venezuela is a key player in Latin America. So absolutely, just like you said, should I say corporate governance and participation, it's a big deal for Trump. And which, he's got different ways of getting this done. Because ultimately, if you're going to have to think about, if we have to get to war, who's going to deal with the catastrophe we have? We've got quite a lot of Venezuelans, and they would have to, the refugees, which is going to have to come. It's not just a small country, it's a heavily populated country. And at the same time, we're going to have to talk about the key, citizens uproar that's going to happen. Again, got guerrilla warfare, which might happen. I don't think anybody wants to deal with none of that at all. So yes, things going to keep going on headline, but at the same time, they will keep talking to each other. And probably at some point, we might just see a headline shift eventually. But overall, I still feel like it's all about getting a deal. Let's get some to talk to the table. And it's all about let's make a deal. Let's make a trade happen between each other. That's what I think they're looking at anyway. Right now, I don't think anybody can afford any form of war. Well, escalation is okay, but just all about how do we get to yes.
All right.
That's what I think they're looking at the moment.
And let's go back to what you mentioned about some allies, like the United Kingdom reportedly reducing intelligence sharing with Washington after some strikes in September. We haven't really had some form of criticism from European allies and also the United Kingdom. Thank you for staying with us. Right before the break, I was asking you about the fact that some Western governments, including the United Kingdom, have reportedly reduced intelligence sharing with Washington after earlier strikes in September. But it seems like we haven't really had strong criticism from European allies, regarding allegations of extrajudicial killings, about 19 reported strikes, left about 60 people dead at sea. Why are American allies not speaking out?
I mean, the key guys who can't really talk. I mean, the United States. There's an association which is called the Five Eyes. Okay, I think the United States, Canada, Australia, UK. This are the guys. 5 countries, and these guys tend to share information, of course, secret information, and they work together. So I think as far as this is concerned, it's a subject for these guys and these guys alone. I think also you got to understand some countries are worried about being dragged into something which is not really pertaining to them, really. I think the more important thing, for example, with the UK suspending the sharing of intelligence, it has happened before. I think there's key concern about the legality of some of the strikes. And again, there is a bit of a pressure at home with, Keir Starmer. I think it just doesn't rise to the bubble, to the top of conversation enough. And again, it's a case of suspected drug vessels which has been targeted in the Caribbean. I think quite a lot of people have been killed. There has been some successes, but at the same time, in this process, also you do get some innocent bystanders or fishermen, you can say, who actually do get striked. Unfortunately, I don't think there's enough evidence to say the targets have been, away from the key targets. I think they probably will say they've got enough success and it's been precise enough. So it's very difficult to speak against this thing right now. They would always come with the same information as, look, when we're trying to talk about these things, when we're trying to strike, we have to understand there will be the odd 1 or 2% that might go astray. So unfortunately, we're just going to focus on the key successes of the strikes and we just keep things moving. And that's just what I would think right now. Because again, like I said, it's a very complex affair when you're looking at the legality or the complicity. But, if from five eyes, if one country pulls out temporarily, remember it's happened before, if one country pulls out temporarily, 4 are still there. I mean, who are you to say we're not doing the right thing? I guess it's complicity.
I mean, the Maduro has repeatedly claimed that Trump administration is, pursuing regime change. And this brings up the question whether a change in the leadership in Venezuela will really reduce the drug cases that we have seen in the past few months. Do you believe regime change is the real goal? If so, how is the U.S. attempting to achieve this aside military strength?
Ultimately, they asked President Trump, what is the goal? And he said in affirmative, he said, yes, regime change, full stop. So do I think that's the goal? I probably think that's the goal. If you ask me over a beer, I'm going to say yes. But if you ask me on the other hand, I'm going to say no. I think he wants a deal. I think he wants closer ties. America and Venezuela, they used to be ties, but they haven't agreed of late many, many years ago. And things have gone a bit over the top. Venezuela has actually shifted more to, they've shifted more towards Russia and China. But America wants to build back, bring things back home. So do I think regime change is? I don't think so. $250,000 bounty, not enough for Maduro, for Maduro's head. But if they can come to table, um, and I think they haven't actually had exact targeted strikes. Yes, they've had it in the waters and the periphery. They've deployed people there, or sorry, military personnel there. Maduro is on high alert. So do I think regime change? We can use these terms for anything at all just to get our goal on the line. But do I think it's going to happen? Honestly, like I keep saying, I'm not exactly sure. They haven't actually had. We've got to understand in terms of what strikes have they had inside Venezuela. That's going to start putting the citizens on high alert, and none of them has happened right now. I think they're still having conversations. You just haven't been able to see eye to eye. So overall, is that the key goal? I don't think that's what they want. Yes, I mean it's been there. No matter how dodgy the election process is, or selection process, whichever way you want to look at it, is that's a word for somebody else to talk about, because it's a totally different country entirely. But either way, he was elected, yes, majority or not. But at the same time, we just still don't know. I think, like I said again, this is a very volatile situation. And then again, we've got a president who is not making, he's keeping his cards quite close to his table. He's saying something and is actually acting towards what he's saying, but I just don't know what exactly his goal is at the moment. Again, I just think if you're going to go about history, it's all about getting a deal, and a deal is probably what he's going to get. He gets what he wants most of the times.
We'll wait out to see the outcome of diplomacy on this matter between Venezuela and the United States. That's a fine place to leave it for now. Thank you for joining us at this time. Global Affairs Analyst, Benga Onifade. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.